Alistair MacGregor is my guest. He's a member of Parliament for the NDP. Alistair, good to see you. Appreciate you taking the time today.
Yes, good afternoon from snowy Ottawa.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of rain in your home province of BC, of course, that we're covering. Let me ask you, if I can, about what you want to hear specifically from the head of Sobeys on these price stabilization plans.
Well, tell you the truth, I've had a chance over the last couple of weeks to review the documents that were sent in by all five companies under question, and I'm actually not expecting too much. But, the Minister of Industry made a pretty strong commitment back in September and October about stabilizing food prices. I think most Canadians want to see food prices actually go lower. But that's what prompted us to take this investigation. And especially, we've had recent comments from Eric Laflèche from Metro saying that that meeting had zero impact on food prices. So I think we owe it as a committee to do a deeper dive into what was actually committed to. And do the CEOs actually have a substantive plan that is going to result in something lower for so many Canadians, because they really are struggling every single week that they're trying to go and feed their families.
Hey, Alistair, how much of this do you think is real and how much of it is sort of lip service, PR, stuff going on by these top CEOs? I mean, is it your opinion they are really committed to trying to do something, or do they realize, hey, you know what, the cameras are rolling, so we need to be seen as trying to do something?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, there are several things I know to be true. Number one, Mr. Medline received a compensation of $8.6 million last year, but he now has employees of Sobeys who are on strike in Halifax, and the latest company offer to them was a 5-cent increase over minimum wage. His own employees are complaining that they can't afford to buy food at the stores that they work at. The other thing that people have to keep in mind is that Sobeys, or Empire, the parent company, recorded record profits. When you look at the quarter that just passed compared to the quarter of last year, I think it was about a 39% increase. And this is all happening at a time when record numbers of Canadians are having to go to the food bank. So again, I think many people can, make their opinions known based on those facts. But I think right now, there is just so much corporate greed in so many different sectors that is driving inflation. And right now, so many Canadians are reaching the breaking point. So as parliamentarians, I think we owe it to the public that we serve to do a deep dive into this and start exposing the structural inequalities that are at play, especially for something that is so vitally necessary, such as food.
I know that the NDP have really been leading the charge, Alistair, on this to try and say, look, people need to understand what's actually going on here. As you point out, some of those facts which speak for themselves when we talk about compensation. Can I ask you what more you think the government could do? And you listen to the industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, and he's very, very vocal about holding their feet to the fire, demanding accountability, demanding answers here. Again, what more do you think they could do to actually bring about some of that, to bring prices down, to hold the chains accountable?
Well, what they have done already is largely the result of NDP pressure. I mean, they make a lot of conversation about Bill C-56. My own leader, Jagmeet Singh, had his own bill, and so we've actually strengthened that. So I do think, number one, a strengthened competition law and a strengthened competition bureau is important. But I ultimately want to see deeper structural change that is challenging the corporate deference that we see in so many parts of how our government operates. I mean, we exist in a system where over the last 40 years, policymakers have largely turned a blind eye to how corporate profits have been increasing and increasing and increasing, and yet ordinary Canadians' standard of living just isn't keeping up. So I think we need to take a serious look at how taxation operates in Canada. We have one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the OECD. There have been lots of calls about putting in a wealth tax and excess profits tax. These are not unfamiliar subjects, but I think we need to have a serious conversation about how we start tilting the playing field back into ordinary Canadians' favor.
Yeah, so we're going to hear from the guy from Sobeys today. Who's next? I mean, how many times are they going to come to Ottawa? What's your kind of read here in the weeks and months ahead, Alistair?
I wish I had my crystal ball, but I think I'm not going to be satisfied, and Canadians won't be satisfied until we as opposition members start driving the Liberal government to actually bring in some serious change that is actually going to change what so many Canadians are going through right now. And that's our ultimate goal. We have to start focusing on building a Canada where people can actually afford to feed their families. I think it's a shameful record that Canada, being such an agricultural powerhouse and so proud of the amount of food we can produce, still has such a record number of people who are struggling with the basic necessities of life. And again, that speaks to the structural inequality that exists in Canadian society right now. And I think they need to see their policymakers taking this seriously, but also following up with substantive action.
Alistair, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the program today. Much appreciated.